Welcome everyone. Today I have another exciting new video for you guys. First of all, my name is Dave. I'm a data scientist, and in this video I will show you how to set up vscode for data science. This is something that has completely changed the game for me, coming from working with Jupyter Notebooks and Jupyter Lab, which are awesome tools by the way, but vscode has totally changed the game for me in terms of my workflow and my productivity. So in this video I'll show you how I've set up my vscode and how I use it for my data science projects. Alright, so here's what we'll cover in this video. I'll first give a brief introduction about vscode, then I'll go over some themes and settings that I personally use, then some must-have extensions for if you want to write Python code, then I'll show you how to run Python code using vscode, and lastly I will show you how you can also run Jupyter Notebooks within vscode. Alright, so what is vscode? So for those of you that don't know, it's a free integrated development environment, or IDE for short, made by Microsoft, and it's available for Windows, Linux, macOS. So doesn't matter what system you're using, you can install vscode for free and get started. Now, why do I like vscode? First of all, because it has so many features. It supports many languages. It has really good features for debugging, syntax highlighting, intelligent code completion. This is a big one. Snippets, code refactoring, and embedded Git within it. So that's really convenient for version control. What also makes it really awesome is the extensibility and the customizability. So there are many settings, and there's a huge marketplace with extensions to add new languages, themes, debuggers, etc. And you really have to know a few settings and extensions to make it work for writing Python code and doing data science projects. And then productivity. Since I've made the switch to vscode, coming from Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebooks, it has just made me so much more efficient as a data scientist. And then this is probably the biggest advantage of using vscode versus just Jupyter Notebooks or Jupyter Lab. It's that you can manage the entire data science project lifecycle. And this also has to do with just productivity. As I just mentioned, when you first write your code in a Jupyter Notebook, and then once it's ready for production, you have to transform that notebook into a Python file, and that just takes a lot of time. You basically have to write your code twice. And vscode makes this so much easier, and I will show you how to do that. So first of all, if you don't have vscode, you can just Google it, go to the website, and you can download it, install it for free. Alright, let's now hop into vscode, and I'll show you how I've set up mine to work on data science projects. So I've opened up a blank vscode file. We'll start off by going to the top right corner, File, and opening a folder. So I've made a demo folder for this video, which I will open. It has a typical data science project layout. So it has some data, we have some code and some Python code, and we have some notebooks. Let me close this out for now. And the next thing that I will do once I've imported the folder is I will save it as a workspace. So I'll go to File, Save Workspace As. And I'll just save it here as demo, which is fine. What I've just done is I've saved this file with the imported folder as a vscode workspace file. And within this workspace, you can save settings that are particular to this project, so that could be really convenient. And another nice way of working like this is that now once I want to start working on a project again, I can just open up the workspace file, and it will open up vscode within this workspace with all my folders attached. So now we've set up the project. So now how do you get started? As I mentioned, when you just downloaded vscode, it's kind of blank, it's kind of empty. So we need to add some extensions, and we have to tweak some settings in order to make it work for us. So let's hop into the extensions, and you can do this by clicking on this icon in the left bar over here. And this will first show you a list of all the extensions that you currently have installed. As you can see, these are all my extensions that I'm running. And there also is a search bar where you can search for extensions. So first and foremost, what we'll start with is the Python extension pack. This is basically a must-have pack that installs 6 different packages that I think are just very convenient. Some of them are necessary to run Python code within VS Code. So on the overview over here, you basically have a description of what's in the extension, and I already have this extension pack installed. So for me it says disable uninstall, but for you, when you don't have it installed, there will be an install button over here. So you can just do that, install it, it's free, it will take a couple of seconds and it will install the following extensions to VS Code. So I'll quickly go over what these are. So first of all, Python is essential to run Python code. So this is an extension that is produced by Microsoft. So this basically enables you to run Python code, and here you can see you can manage your environments, which version of Python you are using. So this is a must-have. So what else is in it? Then we have IntelliCode, which is very awesome. This is, and I just explained how this is not so good within Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebooks, but this is just basically makes your life as a data scientist easier. It's an AI assistant Python development tool that auto-completes, suggests, etc. So you can see an example here of what it does. Whenever you start typing, IntelliCode will prompt some suggestions, and using the arrow keys you can toggle through them and then just hit enter and it will auto-complete the code. So this will do two things. It will make you write code faster, and it will also make sure that you make less errors because you don't have to type all the methods and the attributes by hand, and you can just autocomplete them. So that in turn will also enable you to just work faster. All right, so what else is in it? There's an environment manager. Django comes with it. If you work with Django, that's really convenient. This is an extension to fix Python indents automatically, also very convenient. And then you have an auto docstring, which is also a cool tool. Basically what this does, if you type 3 quotes, it will insert a docstring template, which is very important to just comment your functions and your code for yourself, but also when you're working with other people. Alright, so that's the Python extension pack. Let me take a look at my notes. Yes, so the next one that we're looking into is PyLens. So let me just look it up. PyLens, same thing here. I've already have it installed. You can install it over here. Basically what PyLens is, it's a feature-rich server language in Python for VS Code, and it works together with IntelliSense. So as it says here, PyLens has the ability to supercharge your Python IntelliSense. Basically this makes the autocompletion, suggestions, etc. even better. So another really nice extension to have. And then lastly, Jupyter. And this is, wrong tab. This is a really cool extension that basically gives you the best of both worlds. So I will show you later how this works, but basically this allows us to use all the benefits from Jupyter and Jupyter Notebooks within VS Code. So Jupyter over here, install it as well. Those are like the essentials, and there's a lot more. CodeSnap is also a pretty funny tool that you can use to make pretty code export. So you can highlight a section of code and then export it to a JPEG, for example. So I sometimes use this for presentations. Pretty cool. Path intelligence you can look into, basically makes working with paths easier. So when you type double quotes, you can look through your paths and easily look up data files, for example. But yeah, that's just about it about the extensions. Oh no, wait, one more thing. You can also look for themes and icon themes within the marketplace. So if you want to tweak some settings and adjust the look and feel of VS Code, you can do that here. So for example, I know that Atom has a theme, for example. So yeah, you can look that up, check if it fits your vibe. How you do that? Once you've installed the theme, you can go to the settings in the lower left corner here, and by clicking on the gear icon, and then you can hit color theme, and this will show you all the themes. So I can basically just scroll through those and you can see how it will change. And when you install a theme from the marketplace, it will show up here. So I use the dark plus, default dark. This is the one I like. So this is how you switch up your themes. And another cool thing is you can change your icon theme. If I click here, file icon theme, I think you can disable them, and I think this is like the default, or maybe this one. These are from vscode itself, so you have minimal and seti, and you can see on the left over here what it does. So I use the material icon theme, and why I do that is what I really like about this theme is that it creates different folders for depending on the name of the folder. So here you can see data has a little database icon, docs has a doc icon, it's a different color, and the models has a different color and a different icon. So, and the source is in green with the code icon next to it. So basically this allows me to really easily look up folders that I want to check. So not just by name, but also by color. And I think it just adds a little nice touch. And now there's one more thing I want to show you about the settings. So if I go to the settings over here, now first of all, there are a ton of settings that you can tweak, from font sizes to whatever. You can look through all of these. I have almost everything just on default. I've also never really looked in too much of it because I like the way it comes out of the box. But there's one important thing to note here, and that is that you have a user level and a workspace level. And basically how this works is on the user level, everything that you tweak will be saved within vscode, and then once you open up a new file and you open up a new project, by default it will look at the user level. You can basically compare this to just your settings in any program. You just change them, and when you open up a new instance of the program, your settings are still there. But then a really convenient thing is that you also have workspace settings, and workspace settings override your user settings, and they are tied to the workspace. So as I showed in the beginning of this video, I imported this folder and then I saved this project to this workspace. Now this workspace contains settings, and for example, if I want to increase the font size over here, so let me just check. If I click here and here, you won't see any difference, but here I will make adjustments on a user level, and here I will make adjustment to just the workspace level. That is a distinction that you have to be aware of. All right, so, and there's one setting that I want to show you, and this is really cool, and we'll check that out in a bit, and that is the Jupyter Send Selection to Interactive Window. And I will do that on the user level, and I will look for Jupyter Send Selection to Interactive Window. We want to check this button over here, and what this does, as it describes here, when pressing Shift Enter, send selected code in a Python file to the Jupyter Interactive Window as opposed to Python terminal. And I will show you later in this video what this will do, but this is awesome. Alright, now that we've set up vscode with the settings and the extensions, I'll now show you why it's so awesome and give you a few examples. So let me first start by opening up a notebook. And by the way, this is just a notebook, some notebooks that I downloaded from this GitHub repository over here. It's just some basic pandas exercises. And what I can do is, let me just open it up, and here you can see that we can just open up a Jupyter Notebook and also just run it just like we're used to. So this is really awesome, and this works because we have installed the Jupyter extension, and now we can basically just work like any other notebook. In the top right corner over here, we can select our environment. So I'm using Anaconda and my base environment, and this is really awesome. So we can just work on Jupyter Notebooks here, and let me just open this up in the Finder. It's just a notebook file, and what we can do, if I just open this up and open like a regular Jupyter session, you can see this is basically just the same as you would normally work, but now we're doing it in VS Code. So that is how you work with Jupyter Notebooks within VS Code. And now I'll show you how to work with Python files, and something that has completely changed the game for me in terms of my productivity. So let me close this and I'll open up a quick Python file here. Very basic file. We import pandas, we load a data frame, and we print the data. So the main difference between working with Jupyter Notebooks and working with Python files is that in Jupyter Notebooks you run code cell by cell, which is very convenient. You can use breakpoints, and you can basically for data science projects you can very easily manage a project step by step. So you first load the data, you check it, you do some explorations, you tweak some things, and this is really convenient because in a data science project you constantly go back and forth. So you load the data, you do some tweaks, visualize something, create a function, back and forth, and iterate until you have your desired output. So that's what makes a Jupyter Notebook very convenient for that. And if you compare this to running just a Python file, for example, that we have over here, we can do run Python file. It will run everything in one go. So it will import the library, it will load the data, and then it will print the head of the data in this case. But the thing is, say for example you're working with quite a big data set, you do some transformations that maybe take a couple of seconds each, and then you've noticed that all the way at the end your visualization doesn't really work, you mess it up. Now if you were working in a Python file, you would have to adjust your code and then rerun that entire Python file and do all those transformations again. So load the data, etc. And this can take a couple of seconds, sometimes even minutes, every time that you run the file. And a Jupyter Notebook counters this by running it in code blocks. But now, by using vscode, we can get the best of both worlds. And I'll now show you how to do this. So remember the setting that we tweaked within the settings is Jupyter send. So it says here, when pressing Shift Enter, send the selected code in Python file to a Jupyter interactive window as opposed to the Python terminal. What this basically means is that we can now, within a Python file, as you can see, this is not a notebook, but this is a Python file, we can select a line of code and then hit Shift and Enter. And vscode will fire up an interactive Jupyter session. So this is basically the same thing that's running in the background whenever you're running a Jupyter Notebook. And it will store the lines of code that you've run within memory. So you can see, for example, here the variables. Now, there's nothing over here. But then once we load the data, so I can either select the line or I can just have my cursor on one of the lines and hit Shift Enter. What you can see, it will run this line of code and then it will store it into the variables. So what this basically means is that we can write our Python code, but run it in an interactive way, just like we would do in a Jupyter Notebook. Alright, and now I'll show you why this is so awesome and how you can use this in like a regular data science project. So I have a little script here that basically reads some data, then there is a function to transform some of the data and then to store it. So this is like the typical first step within a data science project. I will set my cursor on the first line and hit Shift Enter to fire up an interactive window. That's completed. So then I'll go to the second line and import the data. And what I can then do, I can just select the data and then run it. So this is so convenient for working on a Python script, is I can just use my arrows and then select certain variables or select whole lines to run the code. So if I have my cursor just on this line or I select the whole line, I can run it, and then what I can do, I can just move my cursor forward, then select just data and then run it, and it will show me the output. And this just makes it so fast to work through a code. And you also don't have to, for example, in a notebook, insert a line below, then type data there and then check the output. You can just run this very interactively, and it's just a very natural way of writing code. Also, you have all the tools in the toolbar here that you also have in the Jupyter Notebook. So for example, I can clear everything up. Let me show you another cool thing. So I have a data transformation function here that basically takes the data, and let me just show what data is, and it takes the item price and it basically turns it into a float. So as you can see, it has a dollar sign here, and that makes it an object within Pandas, so we can't do any calculations with it. So this would be like a typical data transformation, and I've defined this function, and then what I can do here is I can call this function, put data variable within it, and then we have our data transformed. But what you would typically do is you write this function line by line, and in between you test a few things. So what I can now do is, instead of just running this whole function, I can just go to this particular section, highlight it, and then check whether the output is correct. So I can start off with the item price. And as you can see, this is just the item price from the data frame. And this is an object. And then I can use the string.replace method. So I'll select this over here, and I can check, all right, this works. The dollar sign is now gone, but it's still an object. And then I can say, okay, but now we want this as a float. So we run, we add s-type float to the end, run it, and boom, now you can see dollar sign is removed, and Pandas recognizes it as a float. All right, so now I've basically validated my function. I'll select it, I'll run it. The function is now defined, so I can see this is a function. And what I can then do is I run the line over here, and then now my data transformed is a new data frame which has the item price as a float. So yeah, this has completely changed the game for me in terms of my productivity. And once you get used to this way of working, it just becomes so fast. You can just hop through your code using the arrow keys, and then make selections by using Command or Control and Shift, and highlighting certain parts, or by using Alt or Option, for example. Then basically you have the best of both worlds. So you have the interactivity of going back and forth of Jupyter Notebooks, but you also have the added functionality of vscode and the extensions to write in a Python file with all the added features that we discussed, like the auto-completion and the suggestions to basically speed up your coding, make less errors, etc. And you combine those, and it will just really improve your workflow. It has at least done for me. As I already mentioned, the best thing is that the code that you're writing is also ready for production, because it's in a Python file and not in a Jupyter Notebook, so you don't have to do that transformation. So that's what I wanted to show you in today's video. This is how I use and set up VS Code for my data science project. As I said, it has completely changed the game for me, coming from Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, switching to the workflow that I just explained over here. I'm just way more productive and can write code way faster, and it's also way more fun, I think. So yeah, I hope this video helped you out. If it did, I would really appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing more videos related to data science. Basically, whenever I encounter something in my work that I think can help other people, I will try to create a video about it. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, definitely subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.